Welcome back to the Travsessed podcast. We are your hosts, Kim and Aaron. We are healthcare travelers and the creators of Travsessed. And we are now back in the U.S., back from our 2 trips to Bali, which were absolutely amazing. We're back on the mics with this week's show.
Please prepare for departure.
Okay, whoa, wow, whoa. This feels weird. Like a freaking whirlwind, bro. Like we're back in old West Virginia. Mountain Mama is here to stay.
Well, and I already got 1 week of work in.
What? It has been such a whirlwind. And honestly, dude, like it's just... We haven't been on the mic since before we started our second trip, right? The last podcast we did in the villa, right before the second group got there.
Right before our horrible massages.
Oh my God.
The first massage that you and I have ever had that we both just wanted to ask them to stop.
It was like they came to the hotel or to our villa. Literally, I laid on the bed, Aaron laid on a cot on the floor, and they jumped on top of us and gave us Indian burns for like 90 minutes, where I was literally eyes closed, silently crying, just like begging for it to stop, where I really did come close to being like, listen, I'm sorry, I'm done with this. In a massage, like... No, but then I felt bad.
And then I was hoping that you would do it because I didn't have the cojones to do it myself.
Isn't that crazy? We're just laying there and suffering instead of just being like, hey, sorry, I'm done with it.
Which is very...
It's rude.
Well, which is very non-typical for Bali, right? I mean, we get great massages there.
It was, just awkward and uncomfortable, and we powered through. We got to the other side. Yeah. It's just crazy that... We recorded the last podcast before the second group. We had no idea what we were getting into, and like led a whole trip, a whole new group, flew home. You're back to work. It really has been a whirlwind, and it's honestly very challenging for us to keep up with this podcast
unless we plan ahead.
Because our trips are so consuming. Like it's, all day, and we're go, and Aaron and I are on, and we're with the groups, and we're doing all kinds of cool stuff. And it's like by the time we get back to our hotel, a lot of times the last thing I feel like doing is talking more. I just want to fucking chill.
I know. I don't want to talk more, but also like people in our group get sick, and then we're arranging IV nurses to come, and like so it's nonstop until 8, 9 o'clock at night. And so there's people that want to continue the day, and you got to make sure that they're okay. So like. It doesn't just stop when our, excursions stop.
Oh, no. So
and usually our dinners go till like 9 o'clock.
Yeah. We're full on hosting mode, and I love it. And we talked about this before, but it's very consuming, right? So everything really takes a halt. Like our podcast, like, really anything else that we have going on really kind of takes a back seat, because when we're in these trips, like we're all in, like we are there, we are fully present with our group. And so it is a balance that we do have to try to figure out as we plan to host more trips.
Which is funny because, you and I have talked about this in depth, and the flow and direction of our podcast is basically what we feel like talking about for the week. Like, has a topic come up? Is there something that we want to chat about? So planning ahead 5-6 podcasts in advance
is hard. Yeah.
It's hard because that's not the style of our podcast. We're not like on a specific subject. We're literally just talking about our lifestyle and our lives as we're going through it. And so when you're engulfed in a trip, and then you're not going to plan a month in advance.
Right. Yep. So definitely something we got to find a better flow with, because I love our podcast. I love connecting with you every single week. I love sharing. I love talking. I think, again, this is the place, Instagram is, we do a lot of stories and we share, but it's so hard to tell a full story. And I feel like this is, or like the real stuff of what's really going on behind the scenes, and just like the more in-depth stuff, where I feel like this is the platform that you and I get to just be ourselves, share what's on our heart, share what we want to talk about, and really dive into things that we want to talk about in a very open way that we have the time to do it. It doesn't have to be a 30-second clip. So it's like, I love doing the podcast, and I want to be able to have it be sustainable while we're traveling, basically, is what I'm saying. So we'll figure it out. Yeah. All right, let's move on.
Okay.
Oh, that being said, we're going to Patagonia in 6 weeks to host, we're doing the W Trek again, and just an amazing, amazing trip down there. And we still do have one spot open. For that trip, it opened up. And we leave in April. So if you are listening to this, if you kind of been on the fence, or you want to go, or you want more information about the trip, email us at hello@imtravsessed.com, and I'll give you all the trip information. It's going to be awesome. So
yeah, and we're also about to launch our website that will have all of our 2024 trips in advance, ready for you to book, so you can plan out your year. That's something that we've been wanting people to do, to not put all their bells and whistles or all their eggs in one basket for one trip. You can be able to see like what's available, where you would want to go, and ultimately the goal is for you to book your vacations around the Travsessed Adventure Trips. And maybe if you don't catch Bali this year, you catch it next year or the year after, and then you start saying, well, I want to do this and this and this. And so we're hopefully getting to that point here soon, to where you're able to do that, which is really exciting. To be able to pick your trips for the year and get them booked. Yeah.
And I just did an Instagram story on this. It was like 3 minutes long. People are probably like, oh my gosh. But it was like an update about the website and kind of the trips. And that should be done soon, like you just said. Obviously, all the trips will not be up on the website just yet, because we have to plan the trips. Yeah. And FYI, planning a trip takes a very long time. There's so many details. There's so many moving parts. And we put so much heart into these. We don't just throw them together. So they take a lot of time to create. And then once we create it, then we have to create the pay package around it, which is a whole nother thing. So they take a long time. All of that being said, to be kind of a tentative way to think about, because we've been getting a lot of questions of when is the Greece trip? Yeah. When are you launching it? Are you doing Everest? When is that? Are you doing another Bali? Right? Because people want to plan out their year. I get that. And that's what we're working on with the website. But as kind of to put into your mind, we're leaving in 6 weeks to Patagonia. Before we leave, Peru we're launching next. That should be ready as soon as the website's ready. That trip is ready to roll. So the Peru Inca Trail Amazon trip is next. That should be hopefully next week. And then Oaxaca and Everest Base Camp. So those 3 trips we will be launching in the before we leave for Patagonia.
Within 6 weeks.
That is the goal. Yes. Then when we come back from Patagonia, so end of April, the first trip that will be launched is Greece. And then maybe a Bali trip. We're not 100% sure if that trip's going to happen this year.
I don't even know if we can fit it into the year.
Yeah. And then New Zealand, that will be for March of 2025, but we'll be launching it in probably June. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of just something to think about. So if you know the trips that you're interested in, that's kind of what's coming down the pipe in the next couple of months. And then the goal is to have all of them launched, all of them on the website, all the itineraries, all the pay packages, everything ready for the entire year. So people can really take a look at all that. So all that being said, let's...
Well, it kind of leads right into, because, Kim and I were talking even within the 2 Bali trips that we just did, and number one, we're going to dive a little bit more deep, but we didn't realize, but it was our 10th trip. That's a big deal, right? We had a dream, we had a vision, we had a goal. We didn't know who was going to travel with us. We had an idea, we launched it, and now we've done 10 Travsessed trips and planning to do 6 individual trips, which could lead to 12 more trips in the year of 2024.
That's insane.
So we could double our trip amount, right, in 1 year, which...
We wouldn't be able to host all those, but yes.
No, but that's just a really cool thing that's happening, right? And so it was that 10th trip, so we were reflecting on all the trips, and then we started talking because... on our trips, we have a lot of time to sit and chill and get to know the group, and everybody talks, and especially it's mainly at the hot springs in Bali when we're all sitting around like having drinks and cocktails,
So
like
much
the conversations get pretty deep. And we always hear, the question we always get is just like our relationship and the fact that we're a good team and we're relationship goals. And we've pondered multiple times of like, ooh, let's share some relationship advice on the podcast, but we both feel strongly that we're not here to give relationship advice. That's not something that I would ever want to go up like down a path of. Like, I'm not here to share how to like make a relationship work, but what I do love is sharing our own story. And maybe if people learn from that story, then great. But like, I will never be a relationship podcast. But with that being said, I feel like the topic this week about talking about our relationship based off the questions we got in Bali is suffice.
Yeah, and we thought it was cool because it was like 10 years. It was Valentine's Day, so originally we were supposed to do this last week to have her come over Valentine's Day. But you know what? We just didn't have
No, and our Jeep went kaput.
Our Jeep broke down. That thing just got towed. So prayers for the Jeep. She's coming back, but she's on her healing journey right now. So we just had a lot going on last week, so we didn't get to it. But to piggyback off what you said, it is an interesting thing because one thing that comes up a lot with us is our relationship. And it's like, we've been together 16 years. We've been 16 or 17 now, married for 13.
Going on 17.
Yeah. Which is really insane to think about, to be honest. I'm like, wow, like, how old am I? But it's, I think we have a lot of wisdom. I think everybody has their own idea of what makes a relationship work for them, right? And so like you said, I'm never trying to give advice about anything. And even on this podcast in general, like even when we're teaching about traveling, essentially, we're never really saying this is the way to do it. I guess maybe in traveling, sometimes there are certain things that healthcare traveling, I guess. But really it's just about sharing from our own story and giving people insight and advice of like what's worked for us, what hasn't worked for us. And our relationship is something I'm very fucking proud of. Like I am. And it's not perfect. We work on it all the time. But I'm really proud of the partnership that we have and the depths of our relationship and the dynamic in our relationship. It is something that I'm very, very proud of. And I do think that we can offer insight into things that we know that have worked for us. Or like, I think because the questions that were coming up on the trip were like, what's the secret, or how do you guys make that work? Like what the hell are you doing, right? Because also a lot of our trips are single people, which is funny because you and I are.
You think it would be tons of couples,
I do want more couples.
I know, which everybody's assumption is it is couples.
I know,
and it's like no, it's actually single females.
God.
So for instance, in Bali, we had 10, 11, so 21 total people, and 2 of them were men.
God, I know, it's like
2 out of 21.
Honestly, it's ridiculous. Like, I love everyone who comes on our trips. I love the ladies, obviously, but like it was funny. We did a photo shoot. If you follow us on Instagram, you saw it, but we did like a topless photo shoot on our boat with both groups actually. But we used the second one as like a joke, but like as an ad that I'm like calling in the guys.
Well, which then of course, as we were drinking on the catamaran, that seemed like a great idea. And then like post, I'm like, wait a minute. I don't want Travsessed brand to be this like, oh, like young girl, single.
I
like,
don't either. Oh my God.
Bring the guys to hook up. Like, no, it's like, I want male energy.
Just,
in the group. I need an offset of male energy. Love the trip. I feel like I can handle the female energy, that feminine energy. It does get to a point after a month of it, to where I'm just like, oh my God, I feel like I just need to like punch through a window or do something like very aggressive just to kind of get it out. Like,
yeah, you do so well. I mean, you're so good. You get along with everybody. You definitely hit a wall in the second group where you needed to reboot. You needed a timeout. You needed to like recharge yourself. But I can't imagine how that is, honestly, because if I was in a group with all dudes all the time, again, like I like guys, I feel like I can hang out. But it gets to a point where you're just like, geez, it's a lot. And I would love, like, I want to call this in for next year having more of a balance, because I love, like, I love girls. Like, I get along with girls. I'm a girl's girl in a lot of ways. You know, I can connect with a lot of girls, and I love that energy. But I really like the contrast, just the overall energy of having some guys, having some girls. It's a really nice mix, just overall for the group. And so I know majority of our audience is women, and so we got to figure out how to call in more men, because it just it is something that is challenging, I think, for you, especially. It's like, it feels like we're on an all-girls trip.
I can only hear Lucky from Britney Spears like twice.
Listen, you're
like,
welcome for that. You should be so lucky.
I was literally at work last week, just scrubbed into a case, and I was like, isn't she lucky? And I'm like, oh my God. I heard it so many times that's the song that comes up in my head. Like,
to put context around that, our second group, there was 4 of us that
all you wanted to hear was Britney Spears.
That became the theme. All we wanted to hear was fucking Lucky, and we just sang it on repeat. But you're a good trooper, and again, we're always learning and growing ourselves on these trips, from being hosts, our own, you know, triggers that are coming up, relationship stuff that comes up. Like, we're always learning so much on these trips, which I love, because like, we always want to grow and be better people, and these trips push us in ways that make us really take a step back and reflect after each trip about what can we do better, what came up for me, what can I work on, what can we work on together as a team. So I think that's great, and a lot of stuff comes up because of these trips.
Yeah, totally.
So back to the relationship, right? Is that what we were talking about?
Yep.
Okay. Because we were talking about how everyone's single.
Yeah.
We're like, I would love more couples, okay? I like a couple
We
energy.
did have our first Travsessed engagement.
We did. Yes, we did.
Which was cool, on the top of Mount Batur.
Yeah, that was really,
so
really
we've had a
cool.
Travsessed baby who was conceived on a Travsessed trip.
Patagonia.
And now is born and into the world. Theo should have been called Trav. Travis. Just saying. And then we did have a relationship brew on our Travsessed trip, but that fizzled out. 2 of them. 2.
Who was the other one?
Roro and Carrie, and then...
Don't say their names.
Sorry. Well, they're cool with it.
Yeah, it's over.
And then we just had a Travsessed engagement.
Yes, that was
which is cool.
So on the top of Bator.
The goal is to have 2 people meet and get married.
That's
right?
the goal.
That's the goal on a Travsessed trip.
Travsessed wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Now, we do have... So we're going to Patagonia in 6 weeks, and we have 2 guys on that trip. Paul, who we already know and love, and he's like, come on Travsessed Bali. He's a friend. He's going to be there, which I'm really excited about. And we also have another guy who we don't know who's joining. So I'm already like, 2 fucking dudes.
Who came from a referral from somebody that's been on our trips before, which is
love.
awesome, right? So
maybe there'll be a love connection.
Between Paul and...
No, the 2 single guys.
Oh, okay.
And 2 single gals.
Got it. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, maybe the tents will start rocking.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we already had it.
That's where the baby Theo was conceived.
Yep.
Okay, so this is obviously, we're not going to get into like a whole relationship thing, but I think one thing that came up for both Aaron and I that was so easy to come out when people were asking like, oh, what is the thing that like really works for you guys?
Well, put context there, right?
Okay.
Because everybody kept saying, what's the secret? What's the thing? And I will say, just as a caveat, relationships, in my opinion, there are things that I feel that would not work for Kim and I, that work for hundreds of other people, right? So that's why, like, I don't believe in giving relationship advice, period, end of story, because what works for the goose might not work for the gander, I don't know. I think that's a thing. I've
heard goose and gander before. I don't know what the reference is.
Right.
But
I think that works.
I have heard that before.
I'm pretty sure it worked. I think you guys got me. But like, what's good for us is not good for everybody else. What's good for other people is not good for us. So it's like, why am I giving blanket relationship advice, right? So that's why I like telling it through a story. But I will say that Kim and I did come up with 3 things that are, at least I did, that
I'm like, what did we come up with? I have no clue.
that are the three things that you can have so many other things that add to your relationship, but these are the three core values that we connect on that I think has allowed us to not only, go through the things that we have, go through self-improvement, grow together, and then also like work together in a business, work together on the road, be each other's person, constantly attached at the hip, and still 17 years and thriving, right? And so these were the three things.
Okay, what are your three things?
Do you just want me to list them, or do we want to go one and then talk
Say the
one
three
and talk?
things for off the bat, and then we can dig into each one.
So the three things are self-improvement,
Oh yeah.
right? We both agree very strongly that we are a constant improvement and we can constantly get better and better and better. We're not settling type of people when it comes to our self-development. Okay? That's one,
100%.
which we can elaborate on. Number two is I genuinely like you and I care about how you feel and how my presence makes you feel.
I love that.
That
Thanks.
genuinely makes, like, I'm concerned about that, right? If I make you unhappy, that bothers me. And so I want to improve it or talk about it or figure it out. It's not just like whatever, she's dramatic, like, I'm good with, you know what I'm saying? Number three is we are completely, unequivocally heading in the same direction. Vision, goals, drive.
Yeah.
Because if one of those things was altered, we could not be together. I don't agree. I don't think so. But so when things get tough, we have the same vision. We have the same goals. We're not bailing out. Somebody's not pulling a parachute and bailing out and leaving the other person in the plane to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, we're aligned. Like, we're aligned with our end goal. We're aligned with our vision. We're aligned with our destination that we want to go together and the way our lives are set up. We have never wavered.
Yeah.
We are so locked in together. And so when you're attached on those goals, that is the key. That's my one key. The other things are great, but the one key is that you and I, if I had to pick one thing, is we are aligned in our vision, goals, and dreams.
Yeah. I think, okay, so let's go back to one. And
Well, what are yours?
Well, I didn't know we were picking three things. You never pick. Basically, I was saying
Could be
the
the
first.
same. Do you want to add?
The first two things were like what I was going to talk about. I love the third one, the growth, self-growth.
Oh, so
And
that was
then-
the first one, but okay.
Oh yeah, but like I was going backwards. And then the only other thing I'll add, because again, I feel like we could go on and on about things, but like just keeping it simple. That we always have made our relationship the number one priority. So it is of the utmost importance for us to make that a priority. So if something's up, we don't care what's going on. We're going to talk it out. We're going to figure it out. We're going to find a solution. Like, we never push anything under the rug. We sit, we talk, we figure things out. We work on the things we need to work on. And when we start to feel a little like we're getting lost in things or we're becoming distant because, we've just had our heads down for so long or something, we make it a point to come back and be like, okay, let's go have a dinner together. Let's get out. Like, let's just connect. Like, I feel like we're always in tune with the relationship, and the relationship is number one priority, because if that's not working, nothing else is.
Right.
And we've always felt like that. And I think sometimes that can waver in other people's lives because you're busy, you have careers, you have kids, you have this, we all have so much going on. And sometimes the relationship can just feel like maybe it's coasting and you're not really making it that your number one priority. And I think that's just something we've always done.
Well, right, and I think on that though, it's like if we're at, opposite ends of anything, right? Like whether you're upset with me or I'm upset with you or however that is, there's no inspiration coming from the both of us to go through life and or work on the business. We sure as hell aren't doing a podcast, with us like at each other's throats, right?
Yeah.
It's just not going to work. Like there's no, And I think you and I, just personality-wise, wear our hearts on our sleeve and are not fake. And so I think that's a big thing. We'd just be sitting here just angry. Like,
Well,
it wouldn't come across as like
No.
a genuine, and we don't do anything if it doesn't feel genuine.
100%. And we're also two people who wear our hearts on our sleeve.
I just said that.
Okay. And like, if something's bothering me, I have to tell you right away. Which, that's something that is that there's a pro and a con to that. There's times like you got to figure out my timing can be off sometimes, but it's like, I have to get it out. I want to talk it out. Let's move on. You'll think about it and kind of like bring it up. But I think overall, we definitely put things out on the table when something's off.
Totally.
Okay, let's go back to number 1 because we only have like 15 minutes.
We have 20.
20. Okay, we have a call, so we have to cut off at a specific time. So going back to number 1, the growth. I think that this is so important. I've had this conversation too with people about, because we got married young. Like, how old was I? Or we got together. I was 21. You were 25. Essentially, that's young, right? And it's like, wow, like who I am at 21 is nowhere close to the woman I am at 37. Like, oh my God, like 2 different people. Obviously, I'm still myself, but you know what I mean. So I think a lot of people, when they get married young or meet their partner young, whether it's a high school sweetheart or whatever it is, it's like there's so much growth that's going to happen in your life. And if you can't grow together, and not always, I mean, I don't even mean together as a couple, I mean supporting my growth personally, Erin's growth personally, and our growth together as a couple, it will never work. I think a lot of couples outgrow each other instead of growing together.
I've also seen where a lot of people are like stuck in the fun days. When they first got together. This was so much fun. We used to go out. We used to like hang out. We used to just like, there was no worries. And then all of a sudden life comes in and somebody's not ready to go down that path, and they just look back. And I think that there's a lot of fixes with that. Like, you set time in your schedule, make it a priority to go out and have fun, right? Like, anything is achievable if it's worth something to you.
Yeah.
Like, period, end of story. So
yeah, I think like we have both been through extreme growth spurts personally. And we've always been incredibly important to us, like you said, like growth, self-growth, spiritual growth, just always reflecting and working on how we can be the best versions of ourselves and to grow and to work on all the things, right? I feel like we're constantly learning and working on things. And that is at the forefront of our values. That is so important to both of us. And so you've supported me when I've gone through some stuff where I just really had to do like some deep personal work, and vice versa.
Exactly.
And so instead, we've allowed each other space for growth. And in turn, I feel like when you're always wanting to work on yourself as a human, that naturally is going to come into your relationship, and you are going to also grow and do things together.
Well, as long as you don't go the opposite of like using like fitness as an example of somebody like locking it. Well, we can use that for the other one, but like just saying like a lot of times too, somebody grows and overcomes something, and then the other one stays stagnant, and then there becomes resentment, right? Either way. And I think even when you have grown on your path and have like started living life a lot simpler, when it comes down to like emotion, stress, like things that you deal with, like learning how to navigate, your own triggers and things like that, you've also allowed me to catch up, right? And vice versa. It hasn't just been like, oh, look at me on this pedestal, look at me, how much I've grown. It's been like the allowance to catch up, but also leading by example. And I do think within the growth thing, you and I don't hesitate to call each other out on things either. Yeah. Like you got to work on conversations with people. You got to work on asking more questions. You got to work on your face as like you're sitting there. Like you can't look like you are miserable. Like those are things you have to be aware of. And a lot of times people aren't aware of it. And so when you have a mirror calling it back to you with the willingness that we have to grow as individuals, that is the best combination.
Yeah, I agree. I think
because I don't look at you nagging me. It's like, oh, you saw something that caused something,
Yeah.
and you're calling it out to me, so now I'm aware of it, so then I can go back and think, and then the self-growth comes in, because I'm like, okay, I know how to work that out, and
Yeah.
I don't want to be like that anymore.
Right. Yeah. I think the dangerous territory is when that's not a priority to both people. And so I think if I was like, if I was in a dating stage of my life, like meeting people, like I would want to make sure like that person that they value that too. Because if the danger zone is when somebody is like working and doing all the stuff and like learning and growing and the other person isn't, then that's where you outgrow each other. If that was important to me and you were the same person you were back in the day and like never wanted to work on anything, didn't care, didn't want to hear it, didn't want to talk about it, had no self-awareness, never reflected on shit, I would not want to be with you.
Right.
I would never be with somebody that had that sort of mindset.
Agreed.
So I think that's important to come together.
Perfect.
Okay.
Number 2.
Number 2. What was 2?
I genuinely like you and care.
Yeah, I think that's simple.
Like you can love somebody and not like them.
100%. And I see that so much in like different relationships and stuff where people are together and of course you're like, I love you. And like you have a family or you have a life and you have the things, but like you can feel like, do they like each other? They kind of seem to fucking hate each other, right? And like you can feel that. And I think that's really important. Again, if I was in a dating stage of my life, it would be like, is this the person I like? I'm excited to go to dinner with, the person I want to talk to and like share everything with. Like I like them. They make me laugh. I feel safe with them. I feel supported. I feel heard. Like I genuinely like you. Like you are my friend. If we were not married, you would be somebody that I would.
That wouldn't work, but yeah.
Well, no, because we diddle.
Yeah.
No, but like I just like you so much, and that's been the basis of our relationship. It's like we started as friends. I loved being around you. You were the person I had the most fun with. I laughed with. I felt like I could be myself with, and you were the person I wanted to spend the most time with. And that hasn't changed in 17
No,
years.
it's only gotten stronger. And I think that was at the Hot Springs. Colin asked, he said, when was it that you realized you wanted to marry Kim? And it was like after we went to the Dominican and we traveled together, because I do believe you want to test the relationship, book an international trip for 2 to 3 weeks and don't have plans. And my suggestions, go to Southeast Asia because it's chaos and you'll see the true individual, like how they deal with stress, how they manage like
when things go wrong,
how they manage like
when they're hangry,
out of their comfort zone, hangry, sick. Like that is literally the boot camp of seeing if you guys mesh or not.
I agree,
right?
Yeah.
So we traveled to the Dominican, but we did it with a bunch of people, and I realized like I realized this early, which I think is why I was so connected to you from the beginning, because obviously looks was the first attraction, and then it was like, okay, as we started hanging out, I realized like I didn't need my friends anymore. Like I didn't need them, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't like I want to hang out with Kim because she's hot, but I like my friends, right? I need that part too, right? I realized I didn't need any of that. I just wanted to be with you. And when I realized that all I needed was you in my life, as my companion, as my lover, friend, however that goes, like, that's it.
Yeah.
So what else are you searching for? Like,
Yeah.
And then obviously as we got together, you hope the rest of it goes as planned with it. Like, are we connected? Are we aligned? Are we visually like going down that path? And so that's all added up. But I think that one moment when he asked me that question and that came up where I was like, I didn't need my friends anymore. I was okay just being with you and taking on this world with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think I just had something to say that is really important. Oh, yeah, I always say, because at the end of the day, when you're living a life, things can be challenging, you know, like you can be attracted to someone because of all of their money. Well, they lose their money. Like, you know, or their job and they lose their job, or like things get boring,
Somebody's
things
six-pack.
get stagnant. Yeah, like people's bodies change, looks change. Like all these things are like so fleeting, right? In the grand scheme of things. And you go on a roller coaster of life with your partner, right? Ups and downs and all over the place. But like at the end of the day, we always are rooted in a friendship and a likability with each other. And that is the thing that always, I think, brings us back of like, you're the person that if we go on a trip with, I'm going to have the most fun with. I want you to be there. I want to go to dinner with you. I want to spend time with you. Like, even through all the other stuff, like when things are harder, like there's that brings you back to each other. It's like we are friends. And if you can have that in a relationship, that to me is the golden ticket.
Totally. And I think too, like there's two things, right? Number one, along those lines is, we've talked about this before. Like, would you have said that to your best friend in the same way you said that to me?
Said what?
Just something you were upset about.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because you'll just fire off at me. But I'm like, would you have told your best friend Debbie that? Would you have said that exact same thing in that same way?
Yeah.
And you were like, no, I wouldn't. So like, we take that into account, right? Like when we're talking to each other, let's talk to each other like friends, not just like I'm some throwaway, like,
of course,
whatever. Number two, I will also say the sex has to be suffice.
Oh my God.
It has to be excelling, like exceeding, right? Because if that's not there, that's also something in there.
Well, then
right?
you are just friends. Okay. So
you are just friends, and then you're also like missing out on something sexual that is very important. So that's just like, I just want to state that, like, I don't count, God. Like, that's not something that counts.
I think that's what I told Colin. I said two things. You have to be friends and you have to have really good fucking sex.
Yeah, totally.
Those are my two answers.
But I agree. You can't be like, you know, I've had girlfriends that it just sexually just wasn't there.
Oh
like,
God,
it just didn't fit. And so there was always that like, like.
You have to have, like, I have to have sex in my life. Like, if you don't, then you're literally.
But not just sex. Like, it has to be satisfying.
Oh my God, yeah.
Right?
Like, obviously.
Okay.
I feel like we could do a whole podcast just on that.
Maybe we will.
Should.
Because we have a lot to share on that.
Yeah, we have
especially from a guy's point of view and everything too.
So much. Okay, we only have 10 minutes. So number 3.
The most important.
This is the sharing the same vision. I think. Now granted, like, does that mean you have to do every single, like, you have to, I don't know, like, be in the same, you can do different things, you could have different jobs, you could have different hobbies, you could do all the different things, but the bigger picture thing is, for your big picture life, your vision, your dream, where you see yourself, your goals, what you're working towards, has to be aligned. So I'll just give an example, because obviously we are entrepreneurs. That is something for the last 9 years, we've wanted to create a life for ourselves where we worked for ourselves. We incorporated travel into our work. We were making an impact. We were sharing our lives, inspiring other people, and we had more freedom to work for ourselves. Like, that's something that's been very, very important. So a lot of time and energy and work has gone into building that life for ourselves.
And sacrifice.
Yes. So if that was Aaron's driving force in his life, and that's all he cared about, that's all he wanted to create for himself, it was really powerful within. He knew that was his path, and he was wanting to put everything into that. And I wanted to
settle down,
stop traveling, settle down, have a family, have babies, blah, blah. Would that work? No, because our bigger vision of what we want is so different. Mm-hmm. Right? Or when we started healthcare traveling, I always knew in my soul I needed to travel. I needed to see the world. I needed to have the flexibility to travel, get out of Florida and go. And when that opportunity came up for us to start healthcare traveling, and I felt so strong about it, I'm like, this is it. I felt it in my soul. And if you would have said, no, I want to stay in Florida, keep my job, keep my, my house and my dog.
Why do you?
I don't know.
Why did that accent come out with that?
I don't know. Like, but if you were just like, I just want to stay put and I like my life and I don't want to leave and I don't want to travel and I'm very happy and I want to be a manager one day, I'm not sure.
Sounds horrifying.
I'm not sure if it would have worked because initially I might have said, okay, well, I love you and I want to be with you, but I wouldn't have deep down been happy with that.
I agree.
I would have been settling.
I agree. And I think here's the thing too. That also goes with like people on fitness journeys, right? If I went on this fitness journey where my body, my health was my number one, number two, right? Even if I valued our relationship as number one and then used my body as number two, right? I would have different priorities. I would have different ways of thinking. Like, it's not go out on a Friday night and, have drinks and wine and share desserts and enjoy food. It's literally like, maybe that was my cheat day or something like that. But then guess what? I am regimented and disciplined to work out and that is my focus, right? That is my number one. And if you're not aligned with that, you start finding people. I would start finding people that I connect with, a community, because we're human beings who thrive off of community and like-mindedness. So I would start finding other communities that help me facilitate my goals, and we would grow farther and farther apart, right? And so I think we've used the examples, but I want to use this last couple minutes here to say that, like, I do believe, and I want your opinion on it, that what we're saying, it wouldn't work for us.
Yeah.
But people do make that work, and that is where the debate comes in. Are you genuinely happy? Right? Genuinely. And I don't think a lot of people in the United States look at that. It's comfortable. We've made this work. We've been together for a really long time. But like, when you're thinking of like your ideal night, is your partner included in that or not? Is it, I want to go out with my fitness friends and hang out because that's when I feel more like myself, because I can talk about the things I'm passionate about. And see, that's the thing that we have. Like, there is nothing more than I get excited about than getting off of work on a Friday night, going to dinner with you, having a couple glasses of wine, and talking about our business and what we're going to do and our travels and where we're going to go and how we're going to improve and what's new with you and what's going on and what'd you do today. And like, that's what I want to do. I don't care to go out with other people. That doesn't light me up.
Yeah. And I think too, just to like wrap that up or like round it out, is it's not, there's our timer. It's not saying that you can't live a different, like somebody could be into fitness and somebody couldn't and it wouldn't work. I think we're saying for ourselves, but I think the bigger vision, the bigger picture, what do you want to get from this life? What do you want to create? What are your goals? What are you working toward? What's important to you? What are your values? Like, those are the things that I think if you are not aligned with a similar vision of where you see your life going or what you want to work towards, it won't work. Like, you have to share in a vision together. Like, if our vision was, raising a beautiful family and like blah, 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 and we both really shared in the values of that, right? Like, that's a beautiful life to take on and to go do together.
Right,
but
you're
you're rooted in what you both desire. But if one person wanted to do that and the other one wanted to travel the world, somebody would be giving up something, and it never ends up working long term when you feel like you're settling.
Well, also, and the last thing is also when things get tough, right? Like, entrepreneurship is tough. There's pits, there's mountains, there's peaks, there's valleys. It's up, down, up, down, up, down. And if we both weren't connected, it would cause so much friction in our relationship of what I'm putting our resources towards versus like, we are so connected that we're like, no, that's my goal too. So yeah, like, let's sacrifice this and that. Let's make a choice to like not go to dinner every week because we need to put money towards this. And like, we are so aligned, it's not even that much of a discussion. It's like, do you feel any different? No? Cool, let's roll. Like, we're so locked in on that. Like, you were like, let's book 6 trips for 2024. I'm like, hell yeah, like, how do we do that? But that takes a lot of work, a lot of dedication, and a lot of not going out and hanging out. Like, that's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Right.
On top of going to the hospital. Like,
right.
So,
but we're both on the same train.
and it's fun,
So, yeah,
and we
it
like
is
working
fun.
together.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think having the same vision, sharing the same deep values, I think are very important. And what was the fourth thing?
Genuinely like each other, self-growth, and then vision.
And there was a fourth thing that I
Sex.
said. Sex. Oh, and then we just always put our relationship first. We already kind of talked
5
about
things.
that. That's like pretty standard. But yeah, I think we got to go because we have a call. But I think overall, you know, this is something we could talk so much on. But I think just the gist of it, those are things, again, that have allowed us to really have a thriving, lasting, sustainable relationship that honestly, you know, it's funny. It's like people say, oh, after the first couple of years of marriage, it gets hard, or they say the 7-year itch, like, you know, and like, oh, what, you know, it gets...
Wait till you put a ring on it, things change.
Yeah, and it's like been the absolute opposite for us, that I think our marriage gets better and better every year.
Oh my God.
It's so much better now than it was in the beginning.
I would take now way over the beginning.
Oh, 100%. Like, and that's a whole nother thing that we could get into. Like, it's a whole nother roller coaster. But, like, it has gotten way better. Like, in 17 years, I almost feel... That's why I'm like, how has it been 17 years? I don't feel that way with you. I'm not like, oh, I'm bored, or it's monotonous, or it's... like, it's crazy. I just feel like it gets better.
I agree.
So...
Again, we are not a relationship podcast. We are not relationship advice people. This is just work for us, and it's a subject that we had multiple times with our groups, and it comes up every group. And so we just kind of wanted to be able to elaborate more, because obviously we've never been able to share all of this with our groups. And so it's just been nice to kind of have the freedom to talk this out. So thanks for listening to our...
to our hodgepodge of relationship chats.
And I mean, if you guys want to hear more things or have more questions, please reach out to us on Instagram at Kim and Aaron G. We'd love to hear what kind of topics or questions or anything like that you guys might have. Be willing to answer. We're an open book, as you've seen. So
I was just going to say, I do feel like we don't share a lot about relationship stuff often, but like, we are an open book that I'm like, I have no issue sharing about any and everything. I don't feel private or protective or anything about a relationship. I feel pretty open about it. It's just not something like we've ever really.
I'm not going to openly solicit relationship advice, but I will answer. I will answer any questions that people have.
Right. It's just through our own.
In my opinion,
it's through everything we do is through our own story and opinion.
I agree.
I never
I'm
know
just
what's
saying.
best for people. I just want to share our
I'm
own
not even going to
experience.
pretend to know.
Yeah. All right, we got to go.
Got to go.
Thank you guys for listening. We will be back next week with another
Maybe we'll do a traveler quick tip too.
We are 100% doing a traveler. So that will come out Tuesday. That will already be out.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.